Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your brand new source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. Coming to you with a Tuesday edition pre-gaming for the Packers-Titans Thursday Night Football matchup, and I am joined here, as always, with my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
I just say we're here for the early edition. Extra, extra, read all about it. Packers take on Titans at Lambeau Field.
Yep, Lambeau Field, maybe some snow, Thursday Night Football in primetime. We are going to be there at the game, so that's extra exciting. So be tuned in for our post-game after that game. We will probably be doing it Friday morning, but maybe we'll be feeling amped up for a Thursday night if we got a little extra energy in us. But Dad,
you're not getting up Friday morning.
Yeah, I'll be on West Coast time. It'll be fine.
Right, that means you'll be getting up.
No, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Crack of noon.
Don't worry about it. But anyways, yes, the Packers are at home on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. We're not a sponsor, but if they want to sponsor us, sure, why not? Facing the number 3 seed in the AFC. And before we get into that, just a couple quick pitches. If you want to know more about when these episodes are coming out, we do 2 a week, a pregame and a postgame. Come follow us on Twitter, at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when new episodes come out. We tweet out when articles are published that we find interesting. Packers news, notes, and analysis. Packers injury reports. Anything like that. Trying to keep up with the Packers news cycle. Come follow us at FatherSonPacker. We'd really appreciate it. And then come subscribe to us on YouTube, Father Son Packers Podcast, where you can catch all of these Packers, Father Son Packers episodes. You can also catch them on, obviously, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you will find this podcast. But, Dad, should we hit on some news and notes before we move on to the official pregame?
Sure. Let's get on to some of the big news of the day is the Packers made some roster moves.
They made some roster moves that people had been calling for a while. So if you hadn't seen, today the Packers cut both Amari Rodgers, former third-round pick, only second-year player, and Kylan Hill, also only a second-year player, looked really promising in his rookie year, but both cut, and they signed D.D. Westbrook and linebacker Tim Ward to the practice squad. D.D. Westbrook, a punt return specialist. Don't know what took them so long to sign a punt return specialist, but that's neither here nor there. And then they signed Patrick Taylor to the 53-man roster from the practice squad today. Some brief notes about the Amari and Kylan Hill cut specifically. Amari's cut, I would say, was surprising, but according to Matt LaFleur, was mostly due to performance on the field, unfortunately. I'm a little surprised they cut him and didn't just bench him and tried to rebuild his confidence at the receiver position, but it is what it is. He just hadn't been playing well enough. And then Kylan Hill's cut, I think my wording was the Amari Rodgers cut was surprising. The Kylan Hill cut was shocking. But according to Matt LaFleur, the quote was, "This is what happens when you're not handling being in a backup role and not supporting the guys in front of you. Not
supporting your teammates or whatever it was." Yeah.
Yeah. And he said it's a privilege to be, he pretty much said it's a privilege to be a Packer. And Dad, I don't know if have you ever heard LaFleur be as harsh on a player?
I don't know if I've ever seen that. So he must have been really kind of almost disruptive to get that kind of treatment.
I mean, I've never heard LaFleur be that harsh on a player going out the door, coming in the door, like struggling on the field. He is almost always giving canned PR answers, like usually very supportive.
He is the king of the canned PR answer.
And so to even say anything vaguely negative, I mean, if you're controlling for how much he usually talks,
alarm bells should have been going off when you hear that. It's like, oh man, he's screaming his head off with that.
Yeah, it must have been pretty bad. But Dad, you had some thoughts on the Amari one?
Well, I was kind of surprised with the Amari thing. I think, okay, yeah, bench him from the punt returner duties. But I did think from the little time he got out there was something to work with in the offense. But I guess the Packers didn't see that way. You know, that maybe whatever they were seeing in practice, just like they did not want to put him out there as a receiver.
Which is weird because it's crazy that they traded up.
That's the only thing I think.
They traded up to draft him in the 3rd round, spent multiple picks on him, and not even halfway through his 2nd year, he's off the team. And not even for play on the field. According to, I posted retweeted a video. Unfortunately, I forget who the original tweeter of it was, but a video essentially of all of the Packers receivers in the locker room reacting to the news.
Oh, yeah.
And all of it was very much like, Mari, great guy, really gonna and some of them were quite emotional. I mean, Randall Cobb sounded fairly choked up. He does have a like more personal connection with Amari. And then Sammy Watkins seemed very surprised. He said, I thought the use of the words "they" cut him, and the pronoun "they" was a bit interesting. The fact that he didn't use "we," it seemed like he was not really on board with that decision. But I mean, did you have any thoughts on that? Because I thought that was kind of
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I guess they interviewed Watkins and Cobb and Toure.
Watkins, Cobb, Toure, Lazard. I saw Lazard as well. Yeah.
I saw the bit from Watkins and Cobb. I didn't watch the whole video, but I wonder. Maybe this will be good. Maybe this could be good for him.
Yeah,
maybe he'll go somewhere where he'll get more opportunities.
You can't argue that. I mean, if he wasn't a third-round pick, the play on the field would have gotten him cut a long time ago. I mean, he has as many fumbles as he does career catches. I thought it was really nice. I think it was Toure mentioned that he left all of them like personalized voice memos and said he was going to be okay. Still rooting for him. I mean, it seems like he was generally well liked in the locker room, and this was a tough cut for the team. But he had so many chances. They had given him more than enough chances, to be fair.
As a punt returner, they gave him many more chances than they should have.
Yes. And it is weird they didn't give him as many chances as a receiver, but it is what it is.
And, every once in a while, when he got out there, he'd make a play or two. Didn't seem like nothing. But anyway, he's off the team. And we'll see where he lands.
So that's the Packers news. Let's go on to the injury report, and we'll touch on that bit of Titans news in the what's going on in Titans world.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. To the injury report. This is as of Tuesday, so nothing final in terms of anyone being declared questionable or out. And all of these designations are estimated, as both of these teams went through mostly walkthroughs on Tuesday. So keep that in mind. But a pretty long, lengthy list of injuries for both teams. And we're going to start it off with the Packers. David Bakhtiari, DNP for both days. Not surprising, given that it's a short week with his knee. Chris Barnes, concussion, full practice both days, so it sounds like he's either out of the protocol or almost out of the protocol. These are just estimates, after all. Devondre Campbell, knee, DNP both days estimated. It's not looking good for him off a short week. Mason Crosby back full and full, so it sounds like he should be good to go.
Back's getting better, yeah.
Hopefully, knock on wood, obviously. Romeo Doubs, ankle, DNP both days. No surprise. I think the only surprise is that they haven't put him on IR.
Especially since the time frame is 4 to 6 weeks. So 4, that's IR.
Exactly.
I was a little surprised they didn't do it.
Maybe they're hopeful.
Maybe they're hoping it's going to be less than the 4 to 6 that they first estimated.
Enigbare, ankle, limited and limited. It's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on because they are thin at that edge rusher position. Shamar John Charles, ankle, still DNP both days. I mean, he just can't get healthy. This has really been bugging him pretty much all year. Elton Jenkins, knee, DNP, just like Bakhtiari. Not that surprising that they're just letting him take it super easy on a short week for a Thursday night game. Aaron Jones, shin injury, DNP, or limited. Sorry, thank you. And then Alan Lazard, shoulder, limited. Keyshawn Nixon, calf, limited. Aaron Rodgers' thumb, DNP, limited. So it seems like that thumb is still bothering him. John Runyon with his knee, limited.
Though that DNP wasn't even a walkthrough on Monday. Monday wasn't even a walkthrough. Monday was no practice at all, just straight up guesswork.
Exactly. And then Preston Smith with shoulder and a groin, limited. I think the best news is Christian Watson moving up to full participation and Devontae Wyatt moving up to a full participation with an ankle and foot respectively. Sounds like the young guys are getting healthier because we did see Watson. He finished the game out, but he did get banged up at one point in that game. So it's good to see that they at least think he could have practiced in full today had they had a full walkthrough in practice. Dad, anything on the Packer side that we didn't touch on that you want to comment on?
I think that's the big thing is, that it seems like Bakhtiari and Jenkins is just like, with how many days off they've had in a regular week, on a short week, you don't really expect them to practice much, if at all, this week. And Rodgers, he got a day to rest his thumb, as usual.
Yeah.
And the Watson and Wyatt being full participant already is good. And Barnes, maybe, will be ready to go. The other thing to mention is Cobb's window
Yes,
has been open. So there's a lot of chatter out there that he could be activated on game day,
which would be big
week
for them. And I think Barnes is sneaky, very big for them as well, because it sounds like Campbell's not going to play. And when you're playing Derrick Henry, you're probably going to have to play a lot of base, and it doesn't seem like they're very comfortable having McDuffie out there. But going on over to the Titans side of the injury report, they also, like we said, did a walkthrough Monday and Tuesday, so these are estimates. But Danico Autry, one of their better D linemen, vet rest, limited and then full, so sounds like he's going to be fine. Aaron Brewer, one of their offensive linemen, toe injury, limited full. Randy Bullock, their kicker, calf, DNP and DNP, so it's seeming like he's out, and they did sign Josh Lambo to their practice squad.
Right, that's the big. I think that's the real kind of clue there, is they signed Lambo today to the practice squad,
and
that
he's
Bullock
a pretty
is not going to go.
Experienced kicker, so in terms of emergency options, not the worst.
Yeah, he's had a ton of experience in the pros, playing for Jacksonville and maybe somebody else as well.
Bud Dupree, one of their better edge defenders, probably their best edge defender, with Harold Landry being out for the year. Hip, DNP. He also didn't play in the Broncos game, so it's looking like he's not going to play this week either. Caleb Farley, their former first-round pick at corner, is on IR. He's really struggled with injuries, but so he's not going to play this week. Christian Fulton, their other corner, with a hamstring injury, limited to full, so it sounds like that's healing. I don't believe he played against Denver either. They were really banged up against Denver on defense, and they still put together a heck of a showing, although it is Denver.
It was against Denver. I mean, let's be serious here.
Let Russ cook. Derrick Henry, you may have heard of him. Vet rest, limited, and then full, so he's definitely going to play. Cody Hollister, one of their wide receivers with a back injury, DNP. He's probably not going to play. Monty Hooker, they're one of their starting safeties with a shoulder injury, full and limited.
So he got a downgrade going from Monday to Tuesday.
He's but they're both estimated, so it's not a real downgrade.
But he's the only one that got a downgrade.
Yes, and I think he also did not play against Denver. Lonnie Johnson, one of their DBs with a hamstring, DNP, probably not going to play. Ben Jones, their center, concussion, DNP. Short week on a concussion is usually recipe for not playing.
Yeah, I don't know when he got that concussion.
David Long.
This is what I don't know. Did he miss last week? Did he get it a couple weeks ago? Or did he get this? I don't know when that started. If it was this last week, then he's almost no chance of going. But I don't remember hearing about him getting hurt during the game. So this might be a...
Based on a quick check, he did suffer it against the Broncos in that Week 10 game. So he's probably not going to play then.
Seems like he's not going to be able to play then. If he just had a concussion on Sunday to turn around and play in 4 days, that might not even be allowed in the protocol to
especially
turn around
with
that quickly.
With the edits to the protocol. But he is their starting center, so he's probably not going to play, and they're going to have to play a backup there, which is definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah. David Long, they're starting, and I would say borderline star linebacker with a neck injury, limited to full, so he's probably going to play. Roger McCreary, another one of their corners. You're seeing a trend on this. They are really banged up in the secondary. But he was limited with a calf injury, so that's one to keep an eye on. Elijah Molden, their starting slot corner, with a groin injury, limited to full, so it sounds like he's going to play, although these are all estimated. Jeffrey Simmons. This is the biggest one to watch because he is their best player on defense. He is their star D tackle as a former first-round pick. He is really good, and the Packers have struggled with elite D tackles all year. He had an ankle injury that held him out of the Broncos game, and then was a DNP estimated Monday, and then a limited estimated today on Tuesday. So they might have to... Josh Myers might need to have the game of his life, I think. And then Kevin Strong, another one of their D linemen, ankle injury limited to full. And then Ryan Tannehill, quarterback, ankle limited to full. He's definitely going to play.
Yeah, the fact that he was able to... I mean, last week was the question, sort of the borderline one, whether he'd be able to play or not. And after getting back last week, then I think he's, without any setback during the game, he should be good to go for the next...
Yeah, any thoughts on those? I mean, the secondary is super banged up, but most of them are limited or full, so it's seeming like they're going to play.
Yeah, and... their secondary, at least the cornerbacks, are not the strong part of their team. The safeties in the secondary are the better part of their team, and they're two best...
You can say that, but Fulton is really good. I know that his PFF grades aren't great, but most film people agree that he's actually he's had a very good year.
Okay.
Yes.
So
but
somebody needs to change the metrics for their grading, because the grading's supposed to be done based on film.
Well, it depends who's watching the film. But anyway,
right. So it's like, right. Somebody needs to be fired.
But
I don't know who they are. I'm not calling for anybody to be fired.
But there are at least differing reports on how good Fulton is. I think some people said he's had a really good year. Caleb Farley, first-round pick. Roger McCurry, a 35th overall pick, like top 50 pick. Christian Fulton was a second-round pick. A lot of capital in this secondary. And then the D-line, having Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons both on the injury report and both expected to play, is very big for the Titans because those guys are difference makers. Not having Bud Dupree is going to hurt them, but they still have that interior pressure.
Because he's been, their best pass rusher, even though he's coming from the inside, and their best run stopper.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to our game preview since we're already talking about it?
Yeah. Blast from the past first.
Yes, in every pregame, which we do every week, we like to do the last time these two teams played. So, Dad, take it away.
So this was not that long ago. Sometimes I was like, man, you had to go back, get a deep dive. But this one was just 2 years ago.
It does not even feel like, it doesn't even feel like 2 years.
That's because it was like 2 COVID years, which are like,
it's true.
Either
it's like
really
a quarter
short
of a year each.
It's either really short or forever.
Somehow
depending
both,
on which
actually.
way you're looking at it. Yeah. But the Packers won that going away, 40-14.
Oh, this was such a fun game.
This was Dylan's breakout. Finally got his breakout game.
Well, don't say finally. It was his rookie year.
Well, yeah. I mean, but it was whatever, a dozen games in where he saw him. I think Jamal was out, I guess, that game.
Yes. This was in December.
And he got 124 yards and 2 TDs. And Jones also had a good game with 94 yards on the ground. And the Packers jumped ahead to a 19-0 lead and basically took the Titans out of the run game.
I mean, even when the Titans were in the run game in the first half, they held Derrick Henry to 35 rushing yards in the first half. I remember watching this game and being like, wow, a heck of a squad we got here.
And it wasn't exactly like 2020 was some kind of outlier good run defense for the Packers. It was not.
It was a mediocre run defense. It was nowhere near as bad as 2019. It's not as bad as it is this year. It was a pretty solid run defense. But the big star of this game, I mean, obviously Dylan's coming out party, but Devontae Adams had 11 catches for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns in prime time. Yeah. I remember watching this game like, they cannot guard this man. They can't guard him. Yep. Send help.
And we got a little bit of snow as the game went on.
Yes.
This is the game where Dylan essentially put somebody in, just planted them 6 feet under in a grave at the goal line.
Yes, one of their D tackles. Yeah,
D tackle, and he just ran him over.
Yeah,
like got hit by, like he was like tried to stand in front of the Bulls at Pamplona.
Yeah, I mean it was a really fun game to watch. I rewatch those highlights sometimes because it was so much fun watching it. But yeah, so the Packers won last time. And that was LaFleur's first matchup against his former head coach in Tennessee, because if you didn't remember, LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee in 2018. But Dad, beyond that was the last time these two teams played. What has Tennessee been up to? Should we touch on that? What's going on in Titans world? They're still leading the division, 3rd seed in the AFC after being the 1st seed last year. And they're definitely doing better than expected, given that they got rid of A.J. Brown over this offseason for a first-round pick, and the receiver they drafted to replace him, Treylon Burks, has struggled with injury. Ryan Tannehill has struggled with injury. They've had to start Malik Willis a few games, and he's really struggled. I mean, given all of that, they've had a pretty decent record. I mean, they got boat raced by the Bills, but every other game has been very close.
And I think that's been the secret to their record is they've been able to squeak out close games and score more than the metrics would predict.
I mean, Mike Vrabel's a heck of a coach.
And I meant to look this up.
Consistently gets more out of these teams than you'd think they'd be able to get.
And one of the things I did look up, sorry, listeners, was about, because it talks about how, well they function on defense as a unit. And so I meant to look up the penalty rate for the Titans in terms of how well disciplined they are. But that one I forgot as I was looking through other things. But So one thing they're doing is they're actually score. So we were talking about how the Packers' offense has been struggling to find a stride. Tennessee's been scoring less, but barely. It's like 18.4 points to 18.5. But they got way fewer yards per game, 282 to the Packers' 352, and especially in the passing game, where they're second to last ahead of only the Bears.
I mean, we'll talk about this, but they can't pass the ball for shit. I mean,
right? They're bad, and their receivers are bad, and they can't pass.
But,
however, they are, their running game is still good, but even the rushing is only 4 yards per game ahead of Green Bay's per game, so it's not like they're way outperforming.
Total yards per game can be misleading, but yes.
But it's not like the Packers are this fast-paced team that's running a lot of plays, and so they're artificially inflating their counting stats.
That's true.
That's true. Green Bay is actually near the bottom. I didn't look up where Tennessee is.
I would not be surprised if Tennessee's right down there with them in pace.
They're going to be down there too with how much they run the ball. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And their defense is a little better than Green Bay's in points per game at 18.7 versus Green Bay giving up 21.6. Both of them negative for the year in terms of net points.
However, I did look at this. They gave up 41 to the Bills.
It's because they got crushed by the Bills.
If you take that out, they're down to about 15. Besides that game, they've looked very competitive in every game. I mean, they played the Chiefs quite close.
Do you know how many yards
with
they
a
gave
backup
up?
quarterback and no receivers?
Did you see how many yards they gave up to the Bills? Because their yards per game they give up is 358, which is worse than Green Bay's 320. So they're got a big negative in net yards per game. They're getting 70 fewer yards per game on offense than they're giving up on defense.
They gave up 414 yards of offense to the Bills. So a lot, but not like 600.
So in 10 games, that extra 60 is adding only, about 6 yards per game. Not actually that much above their average. It's not like totally skewing the average. It wouldn't be like the median would be way lower than that. So it's not super skewed by the one game. And so, Green Bay, meanwhile, is net positive in yardage. They've been underperforming in net score per yards.
Because the red zone offense is atrocious. To put it lightly, the red zone offense is really, really effing bad. I mean, it wasn't good last year. It was bad last year. It is.
Yep.
Isn't it wild that 2 years ago, when they last played the Titans in 2020, they had one of the greatest red zone offenses of all time, then suddenly off a cliff?
I think at one point they were like the best of all time. I don't know. I don't think it lasted the whole
season. The gold
season,
zone. Do you remember the gold zone? What a time!
I love gold.
Hey, we're gonna get trademark stricken if you keep that up. But anyway, should we get into the meat of our game preview since we're already kind of talking about it?
Yeah, let's go.
Sure. Yeah, let's start with what makes the Titans a tough matchup. I can go first if you'd like.
Go ahead.
So, you may have heard of him. His name is Derrick Henry. He is a machine. I think he is one of the top 10 running backs ever. I think you could even make an argument that he's higher than that. As Joe Barry put it, he literally looks like Preston Smith when he breaks the huddle. This man is 6'4", 240. He is built like a linebacker. He is the greatest high school running back of all time.
Oh, but those are some highlights to see if you guys ever watch those high school.
Oh man, if you ever have a free moment and you want to just watch Derrick, like he looks the same as he does now, but he's playing against children. And
it looks like you've dropped a college star into a peewee league when you watch him run in those games.
He averaged like 250 rushing yards a game. Like, it was absurd. Like, go look at the game log stats. Like, one team held him to 160, and they should have felt so proud of themselves. They held him to, like, 4 yards a carry. I want to know what that team was on. But anyway, he had a slightly disappointing game against Denver, but before that, he had 5 straight games of 100 yards rushing, which is crazy considering he's coming off a pretty major foot injury last year. And then, so obviously, Derrick Henry, super dangerous, one of the best running backs ever, especially when he's going outside, and probably has the best stiff arm ever, I would say.
I have that in my notes too, but I'll get to that.
Yes. And then my second thing is their defense. Their defense is very legit. They've played some really tough competition. They're 9th in DVOA per Football Outsiders for the season. If you don't know what DVOA is, it accounts for the competition they're playing against, and kind of adjusts based on how other defenses are doing against that team, and kind of controls for that. So they're 9th in total DVOA for the season. And while they're pretty solid against the pass, they're 13th in DVOA. They really shine on run defense. They are 1st in run defense per DVOA. They're 2nd in rushing yards per game allowed at 85.1 for the season. Over their last 3 games, they're allowing just 61.7 yards per game running the ball. The caveat is it was just against the Texans, Chiefs, and Broncos, which, I mean, Damian Pierce for the Texans is quite good.
I gotta say, the Texans can run, but the Chiefs just don't even bother.
The Chiefs don't bother running, and the Broncos can't really do anything on offense. But the other caveat going the other way for the Broncos is they were missing almost their entire starting defense with Simmons out, and then Hooker out, Dupree out. I mean, they were missing half their team, so I think that kind of evens out. They're 3rd in yards per carry allowed at 3.9 yards per carry. And this isn't a fluke. This is what Mike Vrabel-led defenses do. They were 1st in yards per game allowed on the ground last year as well. This is all per team rankings online. And, I mean, that run defense makes them a really tough competition because, especially for the Packers, which we'll touch on in a little bit, but the Packers have historically struggled when they can't run the ball. And the reason they beat Dallas is because they had almost a 65-35 run-to-pass ratio. That's going to be tough to do in this game, and this is part of what makes the Titans a tough matchup. They're a good all-around defense, but they are an insane run defense. Dad, what did you have? What makes the Titans a tough matchup in your mind?
So I kind of have the same things you have, and I'll talk about some different aspects of it, but because these are the 2 main things that drive the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry carrying the ball, and their defense, especially their run defense this year.
Old school, hard-nosed football.
Yep, and cold weather, Lambeau, late in the year, run game. Henry is 7th among running backs by Football Outsiders DVOA, leading the league in yards per game right now. And he's also the 8th rated running back by PFF. So basically every metric, this guy's good. We knew it.
Little known fact: this man who's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame is good.
And as you mentioned, he has, I think, also one of the best stiff arms of all time. He has 33-inch arms. So he's got
the best stiff arm
of all time. Got long arms for a running back, to the point where a bunch of analysts a couple of years ago saying maybe we should be checking all running backs for how long their arms are.
There's actually correlation there, and it's kind of weird.
It's one of the highest correlations for predicting running back success is how long their arms are. So
Aaron Jones, freakishly long arms. Look it up.
I meant to look
freakishly long arms
for his size. It's because he's like at 5'10", but he's got.
So I'm going to tell you right now, that man is not 5'10". That man is not 5'8"
5'8.5".
He is Kyler Murray. He's a Kyler Murray 5'10".
So it's like a basketball height listing
with shoes on and an extra inch. Yes.
So the one thing about thinking about this, because a lot of times what you see is like he gets out of the outside and hits some poor defensive back with a stiff arm. The guy's got no chance. The guy's on the ground. He's like desperately trying to reach Henry's body and can't. So one thing is actually our edge defenders. Preston has 34-inch arms, and Eddie Barty has 34 3/4-inch arms.
I'm going to tell you now.
It's not going to matter.
It's not going to save him. It's not going to help him.
But the other thing is
the one thing I'll say about Derrick Henry, he'll be plodding along, 3 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, and then all of a sudden, 70-yard carry to the house.
He runs over you.
He's so much faster than you realize too. When he gets out in field, in the open field, his strides are so long, no one ever catches him. No one ever catches him.
All of a sudden, he runs over you like you're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, he hates.
You remember?
He hates the Jaguars. Thank goodness he does. Thank goodness he doesn't hate us like that. But no, because he will be having an average game, and then all of a sudden we'll just bust like a 70-yarder
or
straight
a
90-yarder or a 90-yard that completely flips the tone of the game. Yeah. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, we're a little bit about our linebackers because like McDuffie's arms are only 30 1/4.
McDuffie also weighs 30 pounds less than him.
That's about right.
Yeah, like he's bigger than our linebackers.
Yep. Quay's probably about the same size.
He's like 5 pounds heavier than Quay. I think I looked it up.
Okay, but that's pretty close.
Yeah, I guess
That's just like a big big meal before the game. 5 pounds.
Oh,
and
my
so
goodness.
then I have
They're
more
in
about
danger.
the defensive. Danger, Robinson with the big long robot arms.
I was doing
warning.
I was in the I'm in danger.
Ralph Wiggum.
Yes, the Ralph Wiggum I'm in danger meme. But anyway, sorry, continue.
The defensive line is also so in the run defense. So now I'll talk about also I have the same thing about the run defense and talk a little bit about different things about it. Is there the defensive line is best in the league by DVOA, especially against the run. They're only average in sack rate. They're kind of middle of the pack in sack rate, but really good against the run. Elite against run up the middle. So, like mid guard, so guard, center, guard by DVOA
in the A gap, yeah,
first against the run, and they're fourth in the league at runs coming behind the tackle. They're a little bit vulnerable around the ends, so the wide runs, their opponents have had more success. So that's something maybe we have. And then the D line is also first in ESPN run stop win rate.
I mean,
and Simmons is
very good. Danico Autry is very underrated. He is a really good football player.
So as individual by run stop win rate, Simmons is third for D tackles. So it's really important whether he's able to go or not.
Yeah, that's the biggest one to keep an eye on.
And as you mentioned, this combination of teams that really run the ball well and really defend the ball well defend the run well have been like kryptonite for the Packers.
Someone, I think it was Benjamin Solak on Twitter today, said that the Titans are the diet 49ers, and David Long is diet Fred Warner was his point. But anyway, it was a really good point because they play like the Niners. They really do. This
is the kind of team like the Buccaneers,
the Niners.
When the Packers struggled against them, is the same formula.
Same thing.
Though they were, I think, a little bit better at chasing down runners wide, sideline to sideline.
And both of those teams,
because their linebackers were better than.
And both of those teams had much better pass rushes.
Yes,
the Bosa.
They combined it with solid run defense with pass rush with sideline to sideline speed.
Yeah.
So some of those things are lacking. The Titans seem to be very strong up the middle, not so strong out wide.
And
so we'll see how that goes.
Did you have anything else? Because we're kind of already talking about how this ties into the Packers. How do you think the Titans are going to try and exploit the Packers? Because I have a few things here. I think the big thing is they are going to try to force the Packers to pass on early downs and then handle them situationally. And what I mean by that is going into last week, so not counting the Broncos game, teams facing the Titans had a 60% neutral pass rate, which is the highest in the league. This is per Hayden Winks of Underdog Football. And a neutral pass rate in this instance means on first and second downs with a win probability between 80 and 20, so not in a blowout, not when the game's already decided, and then not within the last 2 minutes of a half, so not when a team is doing a 2-minute drill. And then, so specifically looking at that first and second down aspect, once they do force you to pass on first and second down and get you to third down, they are allowing the lowest third down conversion rate in the NFL per team rankings at just 27.87%. So they're making you pass on early downs because their run defense is so good, and then they're elite on third down, on stopping you on third down. And as we know, the Packers don't really have many go-to guys on third down. They're only 18th in the league at around a 40% conversion rate on third downs. Maybe if Randall Cobb comes back, this will help. But if you look at the numbers pre and post Randall Cobb's injury, their third down conversion rate is very similar. I'm taking out the Jets game where he got hurt midway through because it's kind of like a 50-50. He played about his usual amount of snaps, but he got hurt about halfway through, I would say. They did go 4 of 16 on third down in that game for reference, so it was their worst showing. But their 43% conversion rate without him outside of that game and 42% conversion rate with him outside of that game, pretty much the same. Those are both via StatMuse, by the way. So I think I would have thought that having Randall Cobb back would really help them, but I mean, Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The numbers don't really bear it out, although you could argue, hey, what is the actual rates on third and longs? Maybe that has a bit different numbers, and that's a good point. But I think just making the Packers do what they're not good at, which is passing the ball, and that's going to be a huge. I think that lines up to possibly give them a huge advantage, especially making the Packers pass on early downs, because we touched on early in the year when they pass on first and second down, they don't get a first down.
Those have been bad. But I only have a few things to add to this because we talked. Did you have more? Because I thought
no. Those are my two big ones.
So I only had a couple things here because we kind of talked about what makes them a tough matchup already, and so just how I think the Titans will specifically plan to exploit the Packers. So Henry, despite being a big back, he's actually does his best work when he's going outside, running outside and breaking the big runs. And
it's because he's a bit of an upright runner.
Yes, he is. He's kind of an upright runner, maybe a little bit like
Dickerson,
a bigger Eric Dickerson.
I was going to say like a bigger Eric Dickerson.
And Tennessee's best run success has come to the left side. They're still pretty good straight up the middle, but and the less success behind either tackle. So either straight up the middle or wide have been their best run-ins, and probably the long runs for Henry have been mostly, I think, up that left sideline. If you think about the highlights of his career highlights, is usually running up that left sideline.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Should we be afraid? Should we be afraid for Darnell Savage? Like, should we fear for his health and safety?
No. You know why?
Because he's not going to touch him.
Exactly. Just going to whiff.
Oh, he did look much better in the slot last week. He looked much better in the slot.
His tackling was better. His coverage was better. I keep that man in the slot, where I think when he starts off closer to the action and he's not trying to, I think maybe one of the things is you don't have the man coming at you with all the momentum. And the fact that he's running with the offensive player from the start gives him a better job of using the tools that he has to try to make a play on the ball or the man.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like his reaction time or his ability to diagnose which way the offensive player is going to go when he's facing him.
A million things. But it's only a one-game sample size that he's looked better. So.
But maybe, in college he played a lot of slot, and I think he was better at that.
In college he played a lot of everything.
Yeah, but maybe that putting him in the slot will neutralize some of his weaknesses. We can hope.
But anyway, anything else for how the Titans might try and take advantage of the Packers' weaknesses?
So I think they're going to try to, as you said, stop the run and force third and long, by basically giving up a 1 yard run and a 2 yard run, and then it's 3-7.
Yeah.
And Green Bay's run block win rate is only 17th in the league by ESPN. So their passing blocking has actually been much better than their run blocking so far this year. Yeah, they're 6th in pass block win rate. So we can now switch over to how we think the Packers will try to exploit the Titans.
Because they're
the
on
Titans
a one game.
Are not a perfect team.
They're not, and the Packers are on a 1-game win streak.
We are on a roll, baby.
That's as good as it gets. But I think
we are undefeated over the last
4 days,
8 days,
10 days, whatever it is. The Packers, I think the biggest thing is force Ryan Tannehill and a subpar receiver core to beat you. Remember, they let A.J. Brown walk. Treylon Burks, who they drafted in the first round, has been injured, although he did just come back last week off of IR. And just don't forget that this just 2 weeks ago, and with the caveat that Malik Willis was starting, not Ryan Tannehill, their preferred starter, the Titans had 0 catches from wide receivers versus the Chiefs.
That's just shocking.
0. When was the last time that happened?
And it's not like the Chiefs are known for their, locking down receivers and having low scoring games.
So play man, put 8 in the box, and just see what happens. If Ryan Tannehill beats you, he beats you. Shake his hand after the game. But he has only thrown for over 200 yards 3 times in 7 starts this year. And that's a low bar. 200 yards. That's a very low bar. And I know it's going to be
downhill. I would say 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I thought he was
when
a top 10
first got
quarterback.
to Tennessee, he played very well. And then last year, he was not as good as he had been. And then this year, when he's played, it's been worse. Bottom half of the league.
Well, it's not. I want to.
Bottom half of the league is a pretty big bucket.
I want to push back on he wasn't that good last year. He took the Tennessee Titans to the number 1 seed with no Derrick Henry.
They did get the number 1 seed.
With no Derrick Henry.
This is true. They lost him for the second, about half of the year?
Yeah, for like half the year. I think he missed like 8 games. 8 or 9 games. So I'm going to push back that he wasn't that good last year. Yes, he completely sold their playoff game against the Bengals. But he had a good season. But anyway, play man, put Aiden in the box. I know it's going to be tough to play base because Campbell probably can't go. And if Chris Barnes can't go, I don't know what you're going to do. Put Aiden in the box with a safety there. Maybe just put Amos down in the box all game.
Bring Amos down as the box safety, and
I don't know if
Ford and Nixon and
see. I don't know if I love that. I don't think they can. I don't think they feel comfortable in putting Amos in the box anymore because they don't feel comfortable putting Savage back. And I don't think they can
did
just
it last
have,
game.
I don't think they can just have Ford. I don't think they can just have Ford back. But anyway,
he's got good speed. 4.4 flat. I think
it's not all that matters. But anyway,
no. But I mean, I prefer him back there alone than Savage.
I disagree.
You'd rather have Savage back there as the last line of defense?
I'd rather have Savage in a one high shell, yes, than Ford. Ford had one good game. Let's calm down.
Yes.
But anyway, Ford is good. I like Ford, but I don't want him as the only like one high safety. But
actually, when they go to the dime, then they have Ford and Savage back, Amos in the slot, Jair, Douglas,
and Keyshawn. They had Amos in the slot in dime.
No, as like the robber, not in the slot. Keyshawn's in the slot, and Amos is the robber, playing up as the dime backer, dime safety.
Mm-hmm. But anyway,
when they brought Nixon in.
It's going to be tough for them because they don't really have the personnel to play base like they would probably want to. I think if Campbell was healthy, we might see some more of that 4-3 defense that they ran out in week 1 before Barnes got hurt. But yeah, that's going to be the big thing. Make Tannehill beat you. That's how I think they need to approach this game. And yeah, go ahead. How do you think the Packers are going to take advantage of the
Titans? I think what they're going to try to do,
what they should try to do.
Overall, it's only 21st by DVOA, so their offense has really been a little bit below average. It's actually surprisingly middle of the pack in both run and pass, and they are 27th in the league in adjusted sack rate given up. Even though they don't pass that much, they're probably not giving up that many total sacks, but their sack percentage is not good. So if the Packers can score early, I mean, this is going to be the trick like the last game. If the Packers can get ahead early and get the Titans into a position where they need to pass, that's where I think they could take advantage. Because the Titans wide receivers, everybody talks about how the Packers wide receiver core hasn't been good this year. Titans wide receivers are worse.
Yeah.
And the best of the lot seems to be Westbrook Akine here, who would be a good wide receiver 3-4.
I think
on a good team.
I'm not all the way out on Treylon Burks yet. He's had a bit of an injury.
No, I just mean right now. I'm not talking about the future.
Burks is going to play in this game.
I know, but it was his first game back last game.
Are you out on your guy, Bobby Trees, already?
Bobby Trees he's had not a good year.
That's your fantasy pick right there. That's your guy.
Well, yeah, I don't have him on my team anymore.
Fair enough. Should we move on to...
Well, I have a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So getting back to the Packers, maybe this be the game where passing more could be better. So their pass blocking is really good, 6 per ESPN, and they have two of the top 3 offensive tackles.
And I think
in pass block win rate.
And I think
Nyman is number 1, and Bakhtiari is number 3.
Nyman has rounded into form at right tackle. He looks good at right tackle right now. And I think last week I heard on a podcast that it was the first game I don't know if it was of the year or his career, but the first game Micah Parsons hasn't had a quarterback hit.
I was like, that's something we failed to really talk about in the post game.
It's because he was invisible. They deleted him.
Took him out of the game, in part from running the ball so effectively, but they also were able to block him up very well. Lawrence caused some plays.
Lawrence caused some problems, but
they really did a great job with Parsons.
Well, I think actually Dallas kind of took Parsons out of the game a little bit as well, because they played him at linebacker, like middle linebacker.
They dropped him off the line
a lot because they were so worried about Jones. And it was like, thank you very much. We will take that 10 times out of 10. Thank you. But anyway, we're talking about the Cowboys now. Let's move on. Let's keep talking about the Titans.
Let's get back to the Titans. Yeah, so pass blocking, and Myers is 6th in centers for pass block win rate. And Tennessee's pass rush win rate, they're only 24th. So this, maybe this will be the game where passing more will be successful. I mentioned already about their PFF grades for the corners not being so good, and some people have issues with how the corner grades have been showing up for the Titans, though their safeties are good. Both,
Byron's a perennial Pro Bowler, and then Hooker is the other one.
And Hooker, and I think what's his name? Is it Adams? Also been.
I'm not as familiar with Adams, but Byard and Hooker are the two stars. Andrew Adams, I guess, is who you're referring to. I'm not as familiar with his play.
I think his PF grades are good. I forget how many snaps he's had.
But anywho, but Hooker and Byard. Byard's been a Pro Bowler countless times. Hooker's a really, really solid player out of Iowa. I remember really liking him. And they got a fast secondary. Byard runs a 4.4. Hooker runs a 4.4. Fulton runs a 4.4. They have some speed on the back end, and so it's going to be. Not impossible, because I think Christian Watson's a level faster than that even. But it's going to be tough to hit over the...
He's faster than 4.4.
It's going to be tough to hit over the top like they did versus the Cowboys, especially now that the Titans know that that's a major part of the Packers' offense. Should we move on to what we want to see from the Packers in this game?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and start us off.
So, even though they've got some fast guys there, I want to see them take some deep shots to Christian Watson this game. Mm-hmm. I think if we could try to get the safeties backed up a little bit, maybe it'll then after that open up some room in the run game, especially to try to get around the wide around the edge if that's where the space is. And I wanted to mention, and talking about this like deep shots, I don't know if you saw this. I think it was Ross Uglum asked Dusty Evely to compare the Packers' points per possession
with Watson and without him.
Yeah, and I think it seemed like a significant difference.
It was
significantly higher with Watson than without.
I want to see that same stat, but with MVS. I just want to see the control. I want to see the control level, the base level, to be having a speed guy, and I want to compare the two. I'm sure with Watson it'll still be better, but I just think that's a better control baseline, personally.
Oh, that's fine, but it does make a difference.
Having Watson is way better than not having him.
Right.
Yes.
And so the idea is we have only been able to see the potential of this offense for a part of the year.
I think
with Watson missing a bunch. And the offensive line just coming like last game, that was the first game all year where the preferred starting O-line played
the whole
snap.
game. And the thing is, they've gotten so... I hate to be this fan. They have gotten so unlucky so many times this season. They have been this close to a lot of wins and have just shot themselves in the foot so many times. That's kind
of what we talk about, where some of the metrics, like your predicted point totals based on how effectively you're moving the ball, they're like way below projection. So you're hoping that will regress to the mean and they'll start producing more points. We'll see. And the other thing I have is I want to see Ford at safety again. And I don't want to see Savage trying to tackle Henry in the open field.
Yeah, gang tackling is going to be huge in this game.
They're
going to need to rally to the ball, because I don't think there's one guy on the Packers that will be able to one guy on the Packers outside of the D-line that can tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one that's playing in this game. I think my big things that I want to see from the Packers is, for the first time ever, I just want them to focus all of their resources on the opposing team's best player. It seems like they're allergic to doing it, They let CeeDee Lamb go crazy. They let Justin Jefferson go crazy. They let Breece Hall go crazy. I mean, they are routinely looking at the other team, seeing the other team's best player, and not allotting additional resources to that player. Like I said before, I want to see multiple players in the box on almost any down that's not an obvious passing down. I think it's tough without Campbell, like I said, but Henry's essentially the whole offense. And your job is to stop one guy. If Tannehill beats you, he beats you. But if you can't lose this game with Derrick Henry running for 200 yards or 150 yards, because it's just so obvious that is all the Titans are going to try and do.
Yep. So you have to play the game where that's the thing you're trying the most to stop.
Yeah, exactly. Should we move on to we're getting a little long on time, players to watch?
Sure. So I'm looking at matchups in this case. So Quay Walker trying to go sideline to sideline and tackle Derrick Henry. It's one of the things I'm going to be watching for. So we'll even more so than Quay tackling up the middle is will he be able to run down Henry and either knock him out of bounds or bring him down so he doesn't get those really long runs. And then I want to see. I was thinking about just Myers versus Simmons, but really it's sort of center guard versus Simmons up the middle. Can they move him? Can they open up space? And can they reduce the pressure he's producing up the middle?
Yeah, and then my players to watch, number one, I think, is Kenny Clark. They need him to be great in this game, and he's going to be going against a backup center most likely. He's got to dominate that matchup because he doesn't have Campbell behind him. He just has Quay and maybe Chris Barnes, probably McDuffie. And Kenny, I know it's kind of just you versus the world up there on the line, but it's a backup center, and you're going to have a Pro Bowl level day because you're capable of having a Pro Bowl level day. And if you don't, I am worried about. I know Derrick Henry isn't as good up the middle as he is to the outside, but it's still going to be a problem. And then my other one is Christian Watson. Had a really awesome game last week, but still some hiccups. Stopped running on that deep ball. 2 big drops. The stop running on the deep ball was more egregious to me.
Yeah, he just, he looked back. It's like, oh, I guess play's over. It's like, oh, crap, it's coming to me.
Yeah, exactly. But if he can stack successful days, it would be so huge for the Packers offense. They need the spark that he provides. I mean, he is an elite athlete amongst elite athletes. Like there is obviously a different gear with him, and it is so important to the Packers offense. But yeah, those are my players to watch. Dad, let's finish this up with some score predictions. What do you got?
Okay, so you want to go first?
Yeah, I got Titans 17, Packers 10. Packers historically have struggled to win when they can't run the ball. Titans are the best run defense in the league. Titans are the best third down defense in the league. They run the ball really well, which the Packers have struggled with all year. Packers are beat up on the edges and at linebacker. It's just a tough matchup. I'm hoping for the best. We're going to be at the game. I'm sure on game day I will have completely flipped this, but right now I'm thinking Titans 17, Packers 10, unfortunately.
So I've got mine flipped. I've got, compared to yours, I got the Packers 17 and beating the Titans with only 10. The Titans have, I think their offense is not really, on the whole, that imposing. Mm-hmm. So I don't expect their sort of luck to score more than the yards predict to. I expect that to regress to the mean at some point, and hopefully now,
because they need it. Because if they win another game, I mean, Philly didn't do us any favors by not beating Washington. Thanks, Philly.
Yeah, and also the
Chargers didn't do us any favors.
Chargers, blowing a lead to the Niners, where those were teams that are ahead of us in the standings right now.
Yeah,
but we still have a chance.
Still got a chance. I mean,
we're not dead yet.
Not technically. Not technically dead yet. But anyway, thank you so much for coming and listening to this Packers pregame for Thursday Night Football against the Titans. If you enjoyed this podcast, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. Come subscribe to us on YouTube, Father Son Packers Podcast. Those would both really help our numbers, and we'd really appreciate it. We'll be doing a post-game right after this game, either Thursday night or Friday morning. So come give that a listen as well. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.